Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering What We Do in the Shadows, Season 5, Episode 4, The Campaign. In this episode, Colin Robinson is the one running for office instead, and he doesn't want the job, which makes it even funnier. Meanwhile, Nandor is making a new friend who doesn't want to be friends, and we have a whole thing with Laszlo turning out to be the weird Bacchus-like creature of luck for the family, quote-unquote, of Nadja. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Max for commissioning this episode. And thank you to Max for understanding. I got computer problems and then I got sick and I have just been behind on everything. And I also want to mention, if anybody's watching this and sort of wondering if I'm ever going to upload the first episode of this, there was an error with Crowdcast and the sound is gone, and I had an error on my computer and it stopped recording. So as of right now, I am missing the last 15 minutes. Weirdly, it's on Crowdcast, like the video, but when I try to download it, it won't download, and I don't know why. So I'm working on it, but that's why it's not up yet. It's not just that I'm behind, although that's also part of it. So anyway, this episode, actually, I felt really solid about. I don't love the subplot with Nandor. Mainly the thing with Nandor is that this is sort of his MO, is like to make friends, or so he thinks, with a person who really has no interest in being friends with him. So that's like the thing, we keep doing this where it's meant to be a bit that he is going out and finding somebody new so that he can either make somebody jealous, or he can get away from the other vamps because they are sort of leaving him out. There's always a different reason, right? And just feel like we have done this a little bit too much. And the fact that what this is all hinging on is that he is trying to make Guillermo jealous, it falls a little flat because he doesn't really bring this guy around at all. So the attempt to make him jealous, it just feels like the only time that it really comes up is talking about him around Guillermo, or he gave the guy Guillermo's number. But it doesn't feel like that's as much of a focus as I kind of wanted it to be. I thought that the dude himself was going to sort of just be a side, what's the word I want? He would just be sort of the jumping off point for Nandor leaning into the jealous thing. And instead, we focus on the guy a little bit more than we needed to, and I don't feel like it added very much because his reaction to everything is pretty predictable. It's just, as he says as he's leaving, I got to get the fuck out of this city. Which, you know what? Probably isn't the worst idea. But mostly, the fact that he had wanted to be circumcised, my very first question was, won't this just heal immediately? And for me, it was not believable that Guillermo does not ask that question. He would think of that, he just refuses to do the circumcision, which totally fine. But I just really felt like Guillermo is somebody who talks logic most of the time and is the one to sort of step in whenever Nandor is about to do something foolish. And he doesn't do that. And he is just, that's his role. So if he doesn't stop and go, won't this just heal immediately? Like, I know the joke is supposed to be that, oh, and he drops Trow and he has healed. And so it's for, but like, even if he were circumcised, the dude would have still been like, I'm out of here. You know, it wouldn't have mattered. I don't think. So I didn't feel like that joke paid off enough to warrant the overlooking of this major thing, which is that he will heal instantly. So that's just like all I'm going to say pretty much about that plot point. I do really enjoy, though, that Nandor is going to the gym to meet people at all. Like, Nandor being at the gym as a vampire with his super strength, that is just really funny. I really like that premise. I like there being like, you know, it's a 24-hour gym, so he's able to be there with other people who are more night owls or, you know, work night shifts or whatever, or day shifts, I guess. I don't know, however that would work out. You know what I'm saying? So I hope that they don't drop the Nandor at the gym thing entirely after this, because it feels like pretty fertile ground, actually. What I would enjoy a lot would be if Nandor met another vampire at the gym, and the two of them, because, you know, as it stands, Nandor can just completely outdo anybody human when it comes to lifting. And, you know, like, that's just a complete, there's no contest at all. But if there were another vampire coming to the gym and they were actually challenging one another, and what, like, all the other people around them might think watching what's going on with the two of them, I feel like that could be a really good time. So that's when I am sort of, that's my druthers, at the very least, that they keep that plot point of him going. And overall, Nandor being like kept out of things because Guillermo is attempting to still keep it quiet that he has turned into a vampire. I feel like there's only so long that this can continue. There's got to be a breaking point, and I'm really curious what's going to happen, because he's going to get impatient, or Guillermo's going to do something by accident, or Guillermo's just going to discover what's really happening here. Like, that's the part that I'm sort of waiting for, is Guillermo still hasn't asked the question about his ancestry and how it relates potentially to his being turned. And I'm really surprised by that. Like, I feel like that should have occurred to him by now. So put it down to like a couple of different sort of out of character things with Guillermo, that he hasn't thought of that, and that he doesn't think about Nandor healing immediately. I feel like if we have too much of this, of him sort of acting out of character so that the plot just is able to continue doing what it's doing, I'm going to have to call it out. At this point, we're at like an acceptable level mostly for me. Mostly. So we'll see. We'll wait and see. But yeah, I just really, the overall thing for me most of the time with other things that I have covered, you guys know this, is if you manage to keep things consistent and make characters behave the way they behave, and the characters are interesting enough, the stories will begin to write themselves, because they are just going to do what they do. And I think Guillermo is an interesting enough character that you don't need to have him be like totally clueless about stuff. He can speak up. They don't listen. That's part of how it's been. That's fine, you know? But it also builds like goodwill, so that when you do start to pull stuff like this later, I will let it go. And as of right now, they have built enough goodwill with me for the show that I'm letting it go for now, what's going on with Guillermo at the moment. But it's sort of like you're on notice at this point, you know? So anyway, I want to talk about, I'm going to talk about the two secondary plots first. So we have Nadja, who is really getting along with her little Antipaxos family. And there's a really great moment where she's talking about how she's like working there and helping, and they show her making a salad. And she's just sticking those like little red stirrer straws that you use for coffee, like into the salad, sticking up like a porcupine. And then she just grabs some of the little creamer cups and piles them on top. Baffling. I really enjoy, because, you know, if they weren't as old as they are, this bit wouldn't work. But the vamps are so old and so completely out of touch with what it was like to be human that they genuinely do not remember anymore what they eat or what this is even. Like, even if they did remember, these little creamer cups don't resemble anything like they've used when they were alive, you know? It doesn't... It's just like, I just love that little sight gag because it's not mentioned at all. You just kind of see it and it's brief. And there's also a point at which like the grandmotherly one is trying to feed her and keeps like lifting. It looks like a pita or something that's got some like dip on it into her face, trying to get her to eat it. And she eventually manages to sort of intercept this woman and redirect it and put it back into her face, which everybody seems to think is a really good joke. So I did find that very cute, because if you are around this type of woman, they do literally shove food in your face. It's really remarkable. But what it turns out thereafter is they all want to meet Laszlo. And they don't she doesn't know how to introduce him to them because she doesn't want him to ruin stuff. She's very anxious about this, actually. More so than I was expecting, because I just sort of thought that she would be like, well, if they don't like him, whatever. But she seems genuinely concerned about their opinion. And he comes in and he's wearing a blue fuzzy Kangol, a green t-shirt that says 80 and several beers ago, a wooden chunky beaded lariat necklace, I think like red basketball shorts, and he speaks to them like they're cave people. He says, "Me, Laszlo, do you people have names or do you communicate with sticks?" And they like look at each other. There was a moment at which I was like, well, I'm not even sure. Maybe they don't speak English so they won't be insulted. But of course they speak English. And they all just sort of, well, most of them seem to. And they look at each other in such a way that it's clearly like, what the fuck? They are not impressed with him. So I love that he shakes the dog's paw and says, "Lovely to meet you." And Nadja tries to explain that he was dropped on his head as a baby. And they all sort of like nod as if they're gonna let it go this time. But there isn't a sense of like, oh, we believe you. It's more like they know that she's just trying to explain away bad behavior. And they are going to, for her sake, let it go this time. So it was sort of weird because I was like, is he trying to fuck up? Because I felt like Laszlo, the last episode that we had, he was like very good with people. That was his whole thing. Or not maybe the last episode. It might have been the one before that. But the whole point of it was that he is trying to show Nandor, I know human psychology better than you, and I know how to like smooth things over. So again, with the sort of like out of character thing where he's completely like fucking up this introduction, and it feels sort of like the opposite, like he's doing the opposite thing. And I don't know, I started off this episode saying how much I like this one, and I did as I was watching it. But like, the more I think about the kind of inconsistencies that are popping up, I'm sort of starting to be like, well, it's not like it wasn't enjoyable in the moment, but if you stop and try and like consider any of the continuity, it's beginning to sort of fall apart. And I'm wondering if, like, I don't think the writer's strike had anything to do with this, if I'm not mistaken. I feel like this was released before the strike began. I'm just trying to think why the show would have been so good with internal consistency for the most part up until this season. And then we have the thing with Laszlo saying that he's not good at mesmerizing when we know that he is, and that it was Nandor who isn't. It just, like, the reason that I went to writer's strike was that I was like, maybe it's, we have people on board who are writing this season who weren't involved with writing previous seasons, and so they don't have like a good grip on the lore, and they should have gotten some beta viewers to watch it and picked this apart a little bit. But he eventually does a second try. He shows up. Oh my God, I forgot about Nadja pouring coffee on top of the salad when she brings it over. This woman looking at the camera in horror, like, am I being punked? So Laszlo is like, oh, I'm going to sing a song that they're all going to remember. So let's begin. And he starts singing in Greek, and it's apparently the song of their like mortal enemies. And Nadja is explaining, don't sing the battle hymn of our neighboring island, Nisidia Mongonisi, because that place is the home of our mortal enemies, Nisidia Mongolians. So what he was singing apparently was, kill them, kill them. How many times have I said that to you in Greek? I really do enjoy that bit, and I don't think that this is necessarily meant to be read into as much, but like, my husband, has ADHD, and I know he's doing his best, but there will be times where there is something that I have done in front of him 15, 20 times, and I'll ask him to do it instead this time, and he has no idea what to do. And I have to suddenly stop and like realize that despite me assuming that he was observing while I did the thing, he was not. And that it clean sailed over his head, that just completely passed him by. And he has no idea. And it's really tough because for me, I can't help but observe what somebody else is doing. I feel like there's just something in me that wants to be able to do the thing also every time. The only exception is sometimes like stuff with cars. And even then I try to observe. I can't do it. I can't absorb it, but I attempt it. But yeah, he just, so her being like, I've said this in front of you a million times. How did you know that? How did you not know that? And him just looking at the camera and sort of shrugging. That's the exact response I get from Owen. When I'm just like, how? I have done this in front of you like 1,000 times. And he just sort of shrugs at me like, I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. I don't know what I expected. To quote Arrested Development. I don't know what I was expecting. So eventually we have the bit where he shows up and he has decided that he's not going to try anymore with all of them. And Nadja is so irritated. I love her expression throughout all of this. He says, now I know I'm different from you people, but I am who I am. And who are you, I hear you ask? Well, that's a good question. I am an esteemed British gentleman, well bred to the manor born. I can speak 14 languages as long as they are English. I can play any instrument apart from the bagpipes. They sound fucking terrible to everyone. I can fashion any tree, any hedge into a vulva. I love the woman that sort of like gets an expression on her face. I have survived gonorrhea, chlamydia, the plague, clubfoot, leprosy, black fever, yellow fever, night fever. The way he delivers night fever. You guys, I could not. That just was so unexpected. I thought we were getting a scarlet fever, you know? But most important, and I must emphasize that this is the most important thing about me, I am a certified master coxman. To cut this short and get straight to the point, you can all go fuck yourselves. And I love it. He says fuck yourselves. Not just says, oh, for fuck's sake, Laszlo. And the subtitles are telling me that he says right after that, very hard, which I did not catch on viewing because I was distracted by the fact that the gram was getting up. But I love that he just adds very hard. So this is when the grandmother stands up and she's gesturing to him, and she like very tentatively walks up to him before embracing him and starts saying something, and everybody else begins to like get up and come and embrace him as well. And you're like, what's happening? And Nadja explains there's a tale that's been passed through generations of a wet-headed, wide-bodied, ignorant oaf with the brains of a chewing gums. This spirit is said to continually reincarnate itself, but always as a pompous, perverted oaf. And my family think it is, well, Laszlo. And when you are in the presence of this spirit, it brings good luck and good fortune to everyone. Vasilius Pieroni, the king of pigs, my king of pigs. I swear to God, I love this development so much. I hope this doesn't just go away. I want them to do more with this, you know? Wide-bodied oaf with the brains of a chewing gums. Truly beautiful stuff. Gorgeous. I loved it so much. I do want to mention, whoever was doing Nadja's makeup this episode, though, they need to lay off a little bit because that lipstick was crazy. It was Joker mouth. Like, lipstick should go up to the corners of your mouth, right up to, and stop. But hers goes all the way around, and it just makes her look bananas. So, all right, now we're going to back up and we're going to talk about the main event, which is Colin Robinson's campaign. So, we start off with the discovery of like him running instead of Sean, because as it turns out, Sean has too many DUIs. I love this. In Staten Island, there's a rule: a candidate can't have more than 9 DUIs. Most Staten Island office holders only have 2 or 3. Too real, you guys. Too fucking real. Look, there may be some places that are like more respectable about this sort of thing, but if you come from a sort of shit town, our town here in Denison, Texas, I can't remember if it was us or Sherman. We're kind of considered like two halves of the same town by most people, which is fair in a lot of ways. But there was a guy who I recently had him pop up in my memories, and he was running for like district judge, some position as judge. And it was, maybe it was county judge. I don't remember. But it turned out, had like 4 DUIs and a potential like hit and run case that he had gotten thrown out. And they were not only still considering like hiring him after that, but they nominated him as Person of the Year for my town. And like, eventually, I don't know if he even got the award, but somebody managed to, after he was like fired from another position or voted out finally, and should have just gone into obscurity, somebody got him a job with like, as like one of the heads of the power station, some position that requires some responsibility. And he just got given it, basically, because he like knew the right people and was making somewheres upward of $100,000 a year at this job. You know, like white men just failing up. That's the only way it works, apparently. I mean, Jesus Christ. So yeah, this is just too real. I love, though, we see Sean going and collecting his campaign signs, and he sees the one for Barbara Lazaro, and he just like punches it. And the slogan they're going for is, "I'm falling for Colin." But yeah, so Colin is saying that he is completely clean, his record. So there is going to be no problem for him. And we see that the person that he's running against, the woman Barbara Lazaro, she has definitely been in a lot of comedy things. I recognized her, but I could not place her. I didn't look her up. But her strategy that she's running on, basically, is that she plans to initiate a new computer system that will render all bureaucracy essentially obsolete. They won't ever have to do it again. Everything will be automated. You won't need to file things in triplicate. You won't need the, And, of course, this is the thing that she starts off with in the debate. But before we quite get there, we just have, like, the on-the-road campaign stuff. Him out and about in different neighborhoods handing out flyers. I love that this little girl takes it. And he's like, well, can she vote? And the mother says no, and the little girl drops it, and he says, well, I would rather it just lay on the ground than be in her hands. Oh my God. He's like going around talking to people on the street. He's going up to like construction workers and having them like poke his belly, and every now and then you get just him feeding. He's just getting a total smorgasbord, as he puts it. I think it's board. I think that's what Cam corrected me, because I said Borg. I think a lot of people say it incorrectly as Borg, and I just picked it up because I feel like he says Borg on the show, actually. But regardless, he's doing all of this, and then he's like, oh, but I need a good campaign wife. And he goes into this breakup support group to find Evie. I'm so delighted. I wish that she isn't, like, at the end of this episode, it seems pretty clear Evie's out. We're done. Like, it seems like that's pretty much a wrap. But I just enjoy the byplay between the two of them. And I wouldn't have minded a little bit more of this, if I'm honest. It's totally like legit that they decided to less is more and back out of it. And probably, this actress has other shit to be doing. But I did really, really enjoy the two of them and the way that they like work off each other. It's wonderful. And so he goes in to this breakup support group and interrupts all of these emotional people who are clearly like feeling a bit of a way, like in terms of romance. So him doing this thing in front of them is it's going to conjure some sincere emotions, and just does the thing that, like, whenever you're going through a bad breakup that you kind of wish you weren't, you fantasize about happening, which is, I miss you. I can't stop thinking about you. I'm so sorry. We never should have ended things. It was like, just everything that he is saying. It's all just the fantasy of what you wish would happen. And, most of the time it's for the best that it does not happen that way. if we got what we wanted all the time, our lives would probably be fucking messes. But you just imagine it, you know, things like this. And I love that he keeps saying, like, to me, you are perfect. And then he keeps, like, naming and dating the movie that it's from. So it's like, you know, Love Actually 2005 or whatever. And then I Can't Seem to Quit You, Brokeback Mountain, and whatever year that came out. But she, you guys, I had forgotten. I wonder how much of this is ad-libbed. I really would like to ask about it, because I feel like probably they've got some things that are like on deck in the script, and then some things that probably she'll just like add a little pizzazz to, take it a little extra. You know what I'm saying? So she's like, I never thought I would see you again after you fled the scene of the accident that left me partially blind and unable to move my legs. But she's like standing up as she says this. So I guess the implication is meant to be that like I couldn't move my legs and eventually I got better. But it definitely feels just like this bald-faced lie in the moment that I was sort of like, why would you say that? And then she says how the doctors said that I would be better off dead. And then one of them, like the doctor, hanged himself while masturbating. Oh, you guys, it's too much. It's too good. I just love her character so much. It's so insane. I just, you know, like we have all met somebody like this. And it can go one of two ways, like especially in fiction. There are people like this that you are genuinely like, my God, how does anybody like get through it? You know, the vibe of that type of person is that they just tell you about shit that's going on in their lives without seemingly the understanding on their own end that this is horrible, what they're experiencing. They seem to think it's normal. And you want to be like, babe, that's not normal at all. Oh my God, that's horrible. And I have met a few people like that who sort of just treat it as like a matter of course, you know, and I'm just sitting there struck dumb with horror. And then there are people who, it's not necessarily that they're lying. I don't want to say that. That's unfair. But they exaggerate at the very least, or they are so focused on everything terrible and they manage to pull whatever bad things are going on into any conversation. And it is so exhausting. And it's like, in fiction, this sort of thing can be played for laughs really easily, especially when it's a character that isn't really leaning into it, that doesn't seem to know how terrible things are and says it in a very matter-of-fact way. Because comedy works best when it's a surprise. So if their tone of voice, which is very cavalier, doesn't match what they're telling you, that's extra funny. But like, there's a woman at the dog park that I go to, and I'm going to put this out here, knowing full well there's a risk someday she may ask me what my show is. I'll forget that I've said this. She'll find this very episode and listen and hear this. I think it's unlikely. But this woman, she's perfectly nice. But she always has had a run-in with somebody that she feels the need to share. And sometimes it's goofy and like a kind of a nothing story that she seems really obsessed about. And sometimes it's something so boring that the fact that she brings it up, and it's always something. The first time that I met her, I didn't realize that she was like this. So she talked about a run-in she had with somebody at the dog park where their dog sort of went after her dog. And, you know, that can be scary when people aren't watching their animals and it feels like yours might get hurt. So even though it seemed like she kept bringing it up and we had sort of exhausted the subject, I wasn't holding it against her because, like I said, it can be upsetting. And I had never met her before. But the next time I met her, there had been a different run-in of a different type. And she was still feeling quite a way about it. And I was starting to kind of be like, again. And then the next time I saw her, a run-in with a person at the, optometrist who didn't want to give her the prescription that she wanted and how she felt about that. And it was just like every time I ran into her, it was a whole fucking story about something. And in her case, it wasn't exactly that she was like trying to get me to feel sorry for her. It seemed more like she was attempting to paint herself as some sort of like badass and was like, and I'll tell you, I just said right out, like, blah, 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 blah. And it was just funny because like what she was claiming, it wasn't like that big a deal that she said that. She was just saying what was truly happening in front of them. So it felt really like, I feel like you want me to congratulate you, but that's like just what anybody would have done, I think. It seems like she did not totally agree with me, but all this to say, when you got somebody who just seems to have like a brand and they just keep wanting to bring things back around to this particular, like, this kind of energy in the story, they always need to feel like they're putting themselves forward as, I am the one who has been the most wronged or the most hurt, or I'm the person who is like tough and stands up to people, or I am the person who knows the most about XYZ subject, and every time anybody tries to like do something else, I'm going to bring up that I worked at so-and-so and, you know, I did such and such. It's just so exhausting. And it's always shoehorned in. It never feels natural, like the conversation, you know, it's just one of those things. So anyway, her like whole thing here and the two of them walking out together is very funny. And then we have the actual debate. And I love this. So the first thing that Colin does is, as Barbara's talking, he spills all of his papers and stuff and collects them from the ground and is just like, oh, no, it's fine. Because she's like, do you need some help? And he's just, no, it's not my turn. But he is like definitely drawing a bunch of attention away from her as she's up here. And then when it's his time to talk, I love the way that this is done. So first, he starts talking about his fictional children. Sitting down for breakfast with my beautiful wife, Evie. Sitting down with our two beautiful little boys, Connor and Christopher. And that's a running joke for the whole episode, that he can't seem to remember or correctly pronounce Christopher's name. I don't think I would have expected this joke to work for me as well as it did. I don't know why it hits so hard, but the fact that he can never remember Christopher's name kills me. It fucking cracks me up. I don't know what it is. It's like, it's not like he can't remember the name. It just seems like every time he starts to say it, he kind of doubts whether or not he's saying it right and sort of second guesses himself and stops. So that, I just like, this was really hit for me. Sometimes jokes do that, you know? Sometimes there are jokes that just like, for other people, they're just like, whatever. And for you, they've got you rolling. But anyway, so what they do for this sequence that I loved so much is they have him, like, the footage fast forward. So you see that he's like talking about something and going on and droning, and then it fast forwards and he is almost barely on to the next topic by the time it comes to a stop. And then it fast forwards again, and he says something about who smells of beef stew as most children his age do, which just precious line. Oh my God, whoever came up with that. All the Emmys, please. But I just really liked it because, like, I was sort of wondering to myself, how are they going to keep this interesting? When the point is that they're boring you to tears, how do I watch it and not feel the boredom myself as a viewer? And they've just cracked it. They go, oh, well, you don't have to sit through it. You will know that it's happening, but you don't actually have to experience every second of it, which is genius. And I really appreciate that. So yeah, everything that he is saying is utterly irrelevant. At one point he just says, and I told him, I said, well, you know, it's because of the taxes. And I love what he did there was he like pretends that his kid asked him a question and that he answered because like the answer to the question was, oh, well, you know, financial injustice or whatever. This is such a real thing that people try and do. They try and present shit as if like my child just happened to bring up some certain thing. And I am not even trying to pretend that it's universally impossible that their kids brought some shit up. For all I know, they did. But using your child to like get a topic rolling, it just feels so cheap and shitty. And I'm trying to remember what it was when the justice died. Oh my God, I can't remember what it was the kid said. It was something about like, oh right, this woman said that her daughter like crossed her wrists and said Ruth Conda forever. And like one that really doesn't even make any sense. Like, what do you mean? You know, like the Wakanda for everything, that's for black folks. Like, let them have that. You don't need to bring this white, powerful woman and like take something away from the like black zeitgeist. But also this woman shares it and I'm just sort of like, that does not sound likely. Even if it were true, I would hesitate to share it because I would think nobody would buy it. And that's pretty much exactly what winds up happening. Is like the entire internet turned against her, just being like, yeah, that's not what happened at all. And again, it may have been what happened, but it just doesn't sound true. But yeah, so this, eventually, like, he has really started to completely clean everybody out in terms of their energy. And you see Evie stand up and talk about how there was like some machine at the factory that rolled over her foot and how a machine isn't going to be able to tuck her children in at night. And she's like, how's that gonna work? Beep, boop, boop, mwah. Stupid. Such a bad joke. Terrible. Thumbs down. Oh my God. It's so stupid that it's almost funny. It almost comes back around. I don't know though. And eventually you see both her and Colin just out in front of everybody doing their feeding face with their like big weird smile and their eyes glowing. And they walk out of there feeling really good about it because Colin doesn't want the job. So he's like, I doubt that I'm going to get a single vote. You were great. You know, the two of them congratulating each other. And then this van rolls up and the two of them get bags thrown over their heads and dragged into the van. And the van drives away. And it really was funny to me because, like, I would be very curious to know what y'all thought was happening in this moment. Because for me, I was wondering if it was like the opposing team, you know, had decided that he was actually maybe more of a threat, or if somebody had figured out that he was a vampire and saw him feeding and they just decided like, you know, either they want in or they want to attack him or I don't know what. It never occurred to me what it is, which it turns out like this is a basically like coalition of energy vampires. I'm trying to jump ahead to the moment where we, because they're let inside and the camera guys, you know, how the conceit of the show is that they're filming this like with a crew following them around. One of the guys says something like, "You're welcome to come in, but if you're hoping to get interesting footage, you came to the wrong place." So they come inside and it's just a place loaded with beige and gray file cabinets and those like really boring beige desks. You know the ones I mean. Everything is beige and drab. They're wearing cloaks that are like dun colored. And this woman leans forward, calling to order the emergency meeting of the Supreme Council of Energy Vampires. And apparently she and Colin didn't even know, Evie and Colin, that this was real. And what they do, I love this so much. It turns out like they're just here to soften up the two of them before the main woman chimes in. So we get this like amazing sequence of a variety of infuriating things. This is the sort of thing that I feel like I kind of want to send to Rashawn because I think that it would really hit for her. Every time I run into some annoying shit involving Colin, my instinct is always to just be like, oh, Rashawn would really get this. You know what I'm saying? But the whole thing is like, every time this woman starts to speak, she gets a text message. She gets something like interrupts, and she attempts to like open her phone. And obviously, she's not really trying to solve the problem, but she has to make a show of trying to solve the problem. And then there's another energy vampire who is cross-talking, trying to explain to her how to open settings and where to go, but he's also pointing out he doesn't know what operating system she's using. The whole thing is truly agonizing. And then they've got another woman who she can't like get her mic to work, so she's trying to talk and everybody is talking over her, trying to explain to her that they can't hear her. It goes on, and it does somehow manage to be entertaining, even though you want to tear your hair out. And at one point, Colin just says, God, they are good. And Evie is just like, yeah, this is awful. And I love the simultaneous admission of how great these people are at doing this and how much they themselves are suffering as a result of it. There's just something about, you know, yeah, wow, I fucking hate this. You are excellent. I love that like combination of energies. It's just so strange that it really, really works to me. So this just goes on and on. Hannibal Buress is here and I fucking love him. Sorry, I'm late. What did I miss? You're not late. You were actually sitting there the whole time. Yeah, but I wasn't listening. So could somebody bring me up to speed, please? Oh my God. Do people really do this? I don't work in like bureaucratic environments pretty much ever. And do when people just walk in, do they just expect everything to come to a screeching halt as somebody else tells them what was going on before they got there? That is just so insane to me. Like that is just the entitlement of that expectation. Bonkers. I can't. Whatever. Anyway, him though being one of the energy vampires is inspired. Hannibal Buress has the vibe of somebody who's just going to be going at a snail's pace most of the time. Even when he's funny, it's always sort of like this understated, like it takes a second for you to realize it was a joke, you know? He has that sort of, I think he's just really, really good casting for this. At one point, when they roll out the display monitor, there is a black vampire who is so tall. I don't know who he is if we ever find out who it is. But yeah, that dude is at least 7 feet. And I was like expecting us to acknowledge it because it stood out a mile to me. And we just don't. And I was like, but I want to know, please, why we have the 7-foot tall man here. Is he like a basketball player? Because that's immediately where my mind goes when you have an incredibly tall black man, which perhaps is just racism. And I will cop to that, but it just felt like we were going to get something about how maybe there are players on the court that fuck things up to drain energy from the audience. You know what I mean? But anyway, so this goes on for another little while, and eventually the like woman in charge chimes in and is like, thanks for softening them up for me. And she has the reason that she is calling this meeting is because Barbara Lazzaro's platform, which is to do away with bureaucracy, poses a threat to their fundamental way of life as energy vampires. The point of bureaucracy is that it slows everything down and brings it to a crawl. And if they are able to do away with it, then what the fuck are we going to do? And I love how she manages to like say this and clearly mean it, but there's no sense of like urgency when she says it because she's just so deadpan and like monotone. It really just, oh God, it goes on for so long. You guys, this whole thing. So eventually, when Colin is like, but I don't want the job though. Like, he says, how do you expect me to beat her? I can't win. Even if I could, I don't even want to be comptroller. And she says, we have ways to, we have certain methods for persuading the reluctant. And here they come with this like insane monitor that they turn it so it faces them, but is also facing me. Turn it so the screen is facing us. Okay, left. Yeah, okay, thanks. Slide 1 of 543. Hurry up and wait. An argument and statistical review of energy vampire preservation via bureaucracy, secured only through, and Colin says, we'll do it. Just please get us out of here. And Hannibal says, okay, yeah, but we're still going to read it. Like, sorry, but we're still going to do it, just to reiterate. Just watch it and read it. And then Colin turns to the camera with this expression of like, please help, please get me out of here. Oh God, I really love him doing that. That expression on his face of panic. That really got to me. Delightful. So anyway, we then jump to him being over enthusiastic. He's on a live or a Zoom or something, and he's jumping on his furniture. He is just, doing the most and talking about how passionate he is, and he can't. And finally, he closes his laptop, and he's just like, I can't keep this up. I can't keep doing this. Like, this isn't me. It's draining me. I love this, that he has been given orders that drain his energy. Beautiful. So eventually he's like, you know what? That's it. I'm not doing this anymore. And he opens the live again, and he's in the middle of talking to them. And he stands up and he has no pants on. I don't remember what politician it was. I'm going to go ahead and Google it. New Yorker suspends Jeffrey Toobin. It was a journalist for masturbating on Zoom call. Oh, God. The call was an election simulation featuring New Yorker all-stars. Toobin apologized for the embarrassingly stupid mistake. Toobin says he did not realize his video was on. I believed it was not visible. I thought no one on the Zoom call could see me. I thought I had muted the Zoom video. I can't imagine. You guys, what kind of... I'm just looking at this. Both people who spoke on the condition of anonymity in order to speak freely noted it was unclear how much each person saw, but both said they saw Toobin jerking off. The two sources described a juncture in the election simulation where there was a strategy session, and the Democrats and Republicans went into their respective breakout room for about 10 minutes. At this point, they said it seemed like Toobin was on a second video call. The sources said that when the groups returned from their breakout rooms, Toobin lowered the camera. The people on the call said they could see Toobin touching his penis. Toobin then left the call. Moments later, he came back in, seemingly unaware of what his colleagues had been able to see, and the simulation continued. Can you imagine? Oh my God. Like, a part of me is like, was that an accident? Or did you just think you could do this and nobody would call you out on it? There's a part of me that sort of was like, that wasn't an accident. Because there are people who just enjoy the power of being able to like get away with something, you know? So there's a part of me that's sort of like, yeah, I don't know, maybe he was just fucking sexually harassing people and he didn't expect anybody to say anything. But yeah, this just obviously is a callback to that. And you would think like that it's would be enough, just this thing, but then he gets on camera and he's like, you know, at some sort of little press conference, and he says like to his children, like, I'm sorry, but daddy will be coming home tonight. And then Evie steps forward and then says, thank you in advance for respecting my family's privacy during don't touch me. She takes his hand off. While we deal with this isolated incident in which my husband flashed and mooned the beautiful voters of Staten Island after a poorly timed masturbation sesh, as well as the isolated incident in which we woke up to what sounded like a burglar in our house, and my husband immediately yelled, "Don't take her and my kids, don't take me," before realizing it was just a raccoon outside our house. This man has let us all down, but I will make it up to you by becoming your next borough comptroller. So she throws her hat into the ring, and it turns out that through the breakup group that she was attending, she managed to get all of those people to vote. And since only 18 people total voted for comptroller at all, she got the job. I love it. I love it so much. And I love how admiring Colin is. He's just like, I'm really happy for her, and I think she'll do a great job. And then she shows up and she tells him that she thinks they shouldn't see each other anymore. And he tries to, you know, be like, oh, well, maybe we can do it. And she's just like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't know. I don't think so. My favorite joke, though, of the whole episode is her giving back the necklace he gave her. And she says, I hope you didn't pay too much for it. It gave me a rash. So I think it must be made of some really cheap metal. And he just says, it's not metal. What the fuck does that mean? What is that? Oh my God. I wish it didn't have to be this way. And he says, Evie, why? And she just says, it's complicated. And she walks out, and he looks at the screen and says, Nancy Myers, 2009. So that's how that ends. And we get a brief after credits of Guillermo and Nandor at the movies. Nandor had taken his other new friend to the movies and insisted on talking through it very obnoxiously. But of course, as soon as Guillermo says a word at this movie, Nandor bites his fucking head off almost. So, you know, par for the course here. Shut the fuck up. I'm trying to watch a movie here. Ugh, Guillermo. Bless him. He's still happy. You still see him smile after that. He's just glad to be spending time together. Oh, Guillermo, you poor sap. You gotta demand more, buddy. Anyway, all right. That's the end of the episode, so I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you guys again so much. I appreciate you all, and hope you're enjoying the coverage. Until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.